sure? You sure? Oh, fucks. It's blocking the form, man. Fucking hell, man. God. Fuck. Fuck off, man, you piece of shit. Okay. Ah, yo, at last. At last.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, why do I see like a bloody wall or something?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my video was on.
Yeah, man, I
Well,
mean, wow.
there we go. What happened?
Wait, how come you're so low?
So low?
Yeah, you seem like distant.
Just because my mic isn't set up yet. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, look, this was a bloody ordeal, man. I think, yeah, there was another link I had to find which you clicked, which I basically I sent you a link that wasn't really proper. So I had to find the proper link, which was going through some menus and stuff. Yeah, but we're here, man. I have so much work, man.
Hold on. Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Hmm?
Is that better? Do I sound less far away?
You still sound far away.
Let me mess with my. How about now? Is that better?
No, it still sounds like you're like distant.
Distant.
Like in the previous ones, you sound like you're actually right next to the mic.
But I am right next to the mic, and it's like really loud in my ears.
Also, or you have headphones on.
Maybe your volume is just low.
And wait, if you go to the settings, is everything like all?
La 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 la.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it all seems like fine on my end. Let me try.
All right. Okay.
Hello. I'm just testing something.
Yeah, like I don't know. For some reason, your voice just sounds weird. It just sounds like uber weird.
Weird, like how?
Yeah, it's like if it doesn't, like before, it sounds just very crisp and on point. It sounds as if like it's like muffled. like you've got like a bit of like a muzzle on your mouth or something. So it's like I can hear you clearly, but just that it just doesn't sound as crisp and as concise as previous weeks.
Okay, well, give me a sec. Let me try to fiddle with it.
Fiddle me done.
So you're not going to be able to hear me for a sec. I'm just going to turn this all off.
Cool. The heck?
Any improvement?
Oh, much better.
I don't know.
What did you do?
I didn't really do anything. I just sort of unplugged everything and plugged it back in again.
Oh, yes, yeah. It's probably just that. There's probably something with the setting where you just needed to unplug it and unplug it for it to work properly. Yeah. All right. So,
all right, mate.
So again, don't spoil the suspense. So I want to find out how you've changed your 2014.
Oh, it's nothing major.
Oh, okay.
It's nothing major. It's nothing dramatic.
Oh, well, it better be. If it's not, just make it dramatic then.
I watched Game of Thrones. It's like, what is there even to talk about? It's just like whatever. It's so. I'm just like,
basically, as long as that blonde chick just doesn't do anything, then I'm happy. But yes, so he already knows that he's a Targaryen. Like they're in the first episode. I'm like, damn. It's like,
yeah, just get that out the way. But it's like, it's also there's no real drama in that moment because we all know, like we've all known for ages.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But I suppose it's because it's him knowing.
Yeah, I know, but it's just I just didn't feel anything. I felt nothing. We hit nothing.
Yeah. I was going to say something. What the hell was I going to say? Oh yeah, what's it called? Return of the King in that great film. I was watching it again on Netflix. In that great. It's not like it's really not a good film. Just that Ian McKellen gives one of the best performances of all time. His Gandalf performance is insane, absolutely insane, and Gollum is hilarious. Hey, come on, silly! what a sick creature, man. Okay, I ready to pop?
Well, I mean, give me a sec.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get warmed up a bit. I don't think I've actually spoken to anyone today. I haven't actually I haven't actually spoken.
So how you actually left the house today?
I left the house, but I didn't speak to anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I just need to warm up my voice and communication. Have I spoken to anyone? No, actually, I have not uttered a word today.
So what have you actually been doing for the whole?
Nothing. Like, I was supposed to be working, like doing schoolwork, but I've just been like refreshing Reddit and YouTube and just sitting.
Cool.
No, it's not cool.
Yes, it's fucking cool, man.
It's not cool.
It's cool.
Cool. This part is cool. Yeah. How have you been?
I've been swell. Rather swell. Rather swell. Rather swell.
Oh yeah, that's what I did today. I fucking watched Blade Runner 2049 and it took up like half the day. Like 3 hours long. And yes, refreshing myself on Blade Runner, the original.
So
basically that's I've been spending the whole day preparing for this.
As you should.
For this podcast.
As you should.
Did you know it's as you know? No, nothing. I'll mention that when we're on the air.
Okay. Oh, what's it called? Yeah, look, I'm fake. Yes, it's going to be crap. Yes, I've been watching the Avengers TV sports thing multiple times. And yes, I have downloaded Alan Silvestri's track called Infinite Battle. Yes, I have. Okay.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Okay, so look, honestly, just give Cap a good send off. That's what I want. Just give him a good. No. That's it. So don't complain.
He's gonna die saving Captain Marvel.
Yes. Okay, don't go there. Okay, that's a slightly extreme. So, are you ready to pop?
Yeah, let's just go. I'm in the right mood for Blade Runner.
All right. Yo, guys, welcome again. Welcome to yet another episode of Womb. We obsess over... What?
Sorry, I just... Is that really what the show is called now? Welcome to Womb. Welcome to the Womb.
You've been hearing this for the past 3, 4. So yes, it is. Okay, welcome to Womb. We obsess over movies. Your residence area for where we, talk about classic films and stuff like that. So, for this episode for this week, we are doing something slightly different. We are going to be covering 2 films of the same world. And so this week we are looking at the Blade Runner universe. So we're looking at Blade Runners, the original Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Ford. And we're looking at the more recent Blade Runner 2049 sequel to the original, directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring Ryan Gosling. So me, HH, I am a huge fan of the original Blade Runner. And I admire 2049, but I'm not a huge fan of 2049. And Mr. Basil here, again, please change your name. was not a fan of the original Blade Runner, but
I was a fan of the original Blade Runner, but I am not so much anymore.
Of the original Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But more of a fan of 2049?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, look, man, I mean, how do we start this off? Because I think, look, man, let me just put it out there. For me, like, again, when I first, because again, I was always hearing about Blade Runner all the time, and I never watched it. I was like, what is? So then I remember in the store, there was the Ultimate Cut. And I was like, okay, look, let me just go and watch this and everything. And I was like, okay, this film is hype. I bet it wouldn't live up to the hype and everything, man. So when I saw it, I was like, this is visually, emotionally, cinematically one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. You know, the world that he created, the way the story is told, how it doesn't rely too much on narrative, how it doesn't spoon feed you story, and how simple the story is, and how the story, it really just it relies much more on visuals and emotions rather than, twists, turns, cards, and everything. Like you can actually just infuse what you want into the story, and it's literally is just a very visceral experience. It's like the best kind of art film. Again, I'm not a fan of art films, art for art's sake, but for me, it's the best kind of art film where it's very visual, but it just gives you the right amount of visuals and just the right amount of narrative just to leave you with what it is an unforgettable experience. And for 2049, again, I was hyped for it. When I saw that Denis Villeneuve was doing it, I was like, okay, boom, boom, this looks cool. Trailer looks really good. It looks like it was in the same world as Blade Runner. But then when I watched it, it just didn't have the same effect on me. It had some amazing scenes. Roger Deakins lit that thing like crazy. The cinematography was off the chain. But I just felt that it lacked the character of the Blade Runner world. It was lacking the grittiness, the edge, and just the density and complexity of the different kinds of cultures and styles that Ridley Scott puts into the world. Because for me, like, it just seemed very plain and very much like your regular sci-fi kind of film, and it didn't have its own kind of personality. And again, I just felt like if Ryan Gosling just didn't, even if I feel Ryan Gosling may be technically a better actor than Harrison Ford, I just don't think he had the same kind of presence and aura than Ford had. And I think as much as, basically, there's much more of a narrative in the 2049, there's much more of a story and much more intricacy of the story with things happening and turns happening. But I just felt that, in a way, it sort of detracted from what Blade Runner was. So it just ended up being like a typical sci-fi film, and I hated the ending. So
you hated the ending?
Yep. With where he sees his again, spoilers, guys, spoilers, where he sees his daughter.
Why would you? That's like one of the best parts of the story.
Well, basically, it's a combination of I really didn't like that character. I felt that character just came across very cheesy, and didn't like the way that she played the character. And just when it happened, it just came across as very cheesy too to me. And I think the issue is because this is a sequel to Blade Runner, because Denis Villeneuve is such a fan of Ridley Scott, and because even how the film even starts is such a homage to Blade Runner, it is so intrinsically tied to the film, and it relies upon what happened in that original film that it's almost as if you have to compare it to the original, and it just seems like it's good that he wanted to make it different. I like, because if you just made it exactly the same, then there's no point. The whole point is you have to make it different. But I just felt that you have to strike a balance between, you want to have your own artistic voice, but you need to also keep within the same mind frame of what the world was about. And I just felt like the world's aesthetic was too far removed from what Ridley Scott's developed in his film. So I mean, so yeah, just your general thoughts on both films, just very general.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, because in a lot of ways I do agree with you, actually, but there's like okay, so well, I guess my basic take on it is that I think both films have an issue with them where it's almost like there's a certain demographic of people who feel like you have to like them. and like it's you just automatically like them.
Sorry, but very quickly, just
yes, that's okay. Yes, all right.
No, just even from what you said, I don't think I've met anybody that generally loves both films. Either people who love 2049 and really like Blade Runner, or people who love Blade Runner and don't really like 2049.
Yes, but there's a certain mindset with like for some people that like you just automatically like Blade Runner, or even you automatically just like Blade Runner 2049. Like they're just high caliber, high brow films that you just must like. I feel the original Blade Runner, it's got such a cult status now, and I feel there are so many levels it doesn't work on, like particularly with the story, and just the basic setup of it is that it's a sci-fi noir film, and where you're following a detective who's not really detecting anything. Like there's no mystery, there's nothing to solve. Like we already know what all the stakes are, and the story is just boring because you've got all the sort of behind the scenes stuff going on, where with like the kind of knowing that Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott really didn't get along, and that Sean Young and Harrison Ford also kind of hated each other, and so there's no chemistry between Harrison Ford and the love interest, and so there's just nothing driving it narratively, and it just so in that respect it just comes across as very boring and difficult to sit through. But like you said, visually it's stunning. There's almost nothing like it. It's so impressive, and so just there's just a feel to it that's almost intangible. Like it's almost hard to put your finger on this sort of just heavy, grand just weight to the world, and it just feels so real and so just lived in, and it's just so stunning to look at, and you just get filled with this sort of like strange melancholy. And the music is great, and
Vangelis man.
Yeah, and Rutger Hauer, actually, in fact, all the sort of the replicants give very good performances. Whereas on the other end, you've got Blade Runner 2049, which has an interesting story, a quite intriguing story, with an actual like detective sort of mystery. And the world has so much detail and so much richness in just like you feeling like how much work was put into just like all the little things to make the world feel alive and real. But it also is lacking something. It's lacking something. It's quite a forgettable film, as grand and as impressive and as just like amazing a piece of cinema that it is. There's just nothing about it that really sticks in your memory once it's over. It's just quite by the numbers in a strange way. And so it's hard to even like, so from my position, I'm saying I can't say I love either of them. I'd say I prefer 2049 just because I feel it's just a better film. And actually takes the stuff from the original Blade Runner that worked and like gives it a bit more sort of polish and like stretches it out and makes something of it. Whereas it almost feels like the stuff that worked in Blade Runner, a lot of it just like Blade Runner feels like sort of like a bit of a mess with just these incredible heights of quality all just sort of like jammed together into this sort of messy product. With Blade Runner 2049 feels like such a high quality film, but just without anything really to stick in your mind once it's over, like without any sort of that. I mean, that obviously people will differ in how they feel about that, but that's how I feel about it. And I feel like, because I watched it a second time, and the first time I watched it, I had that feeling, whereas like I almost like forced myself to say like I love this film, like because I feel like I have to, like I was saying earlier. It's just like, well, no, because it's like, ooh, look how good it is, and it's so, oh, look at all the heavy themes it's getting into. But really, I was like, I struggled to even When I was watching it the second time, there were so many things like, oh yeah, that happens, and oh yeah, that I completely forgot about so much that was in it because it just doesn't resonate.
I mean, but just to your point, with regards to like the lack of a story in the Blade Runner film, basically two points of that. I think the first point is he does do detective work to find the dancer that likes snakes.
Right,
Because
but the stuff he does is ridiculous. Like where he does that, like it's almost like he's just like an amateur. Like he comes in and does this like ridiculous voice where he's pretending to be from like a paper, and all he does is like make us suspicious.
I mean, no, but before when he goes with Gaff to that bathtub, and they then take a sample of a snake scale thing or something from the from where she was at.
Sure, fine.
And then goes to the apartment, and so yeah, give me a hard copy right there. Like when he basically zooms into the place,
which is one of the most boring
like snake scale thing that that snake scale must be linked into this. So no, but basically that was just like a someone put up like So he does do some detective work, but not enough. So I get that. But my thing about it is, and even to a bigger point, is to not have expectation. I think that if you have the expectation of he's a detective, so he should ... then because the thing about Blade Runner is that take it as what it is.
Okay, yeah. Look, sorry to cut you off. I just want to say, like, I'm not saying like, oh, he must do this XYZ because he's this particular character. I'm just saying that like what there isn't very interesting because so he is a detective, but there is no mystery. Like there's no like whatever he is or isn't doing doesn't actually lead to any like resolution of a sort of any kind of mystery or any kind of any kind of intrigue. It's like there's just nothing interesting going on. Like we're just told there are some replicants and he needs to hunt them down, and that's it. And then like whatever other like mystery there is just doesn't go anywhere and just isn't interesting. The only like unspoken thing is sort of the connection he has with Sean Young, with Rachel. But that's also something that doesn't work because the chemistry between them is so bad, and the like her being a replicant is just sort of a very quickly resolved issue.
Oh, no, I mean, basically, no, my thing about it is, if you think of it this way, really the heart and soul of the film is the Batty character, Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
He's the heart and soul of the film.
He's the most interesting character by far.
No, but basically, see, the way I view the film is, even if quote unquote the main character is Deckard, he's actually really the villain. Because by the time you end the film, really the sort of hero protagonist is the Batty character.
Yeah.
Because remember, he's the one, because this bounty hunter is out there to pretty much kill him. So, and you're basically killing characters that, okay, they're not harming anyone, they just want to pretty much be human, and they want to pretty much live longer. But the heart and soul and the real story arc and everything is shown through Batty's character. So really, that is where the juice and the foundation of the film comes through. But to understand his character and his plight, we have to look at the danger that is coming towards him, which is the bounty hunter, who, if you think about it, you could argue is the villain of the piece. He's actually you could say that he's the antagonist.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it slightly a bit more interesting, because it isn't a standard kind of good guy, bad guy. The replicants of the bad guys thing is at the good guys, because when it begins, that's how it's presented. Okay, typical, he's the detective greedy guy, and who are these bad guys? But when you now finish the film, you're like, wait a minute, and you watch it again. No, really, like the main character is Batty, because he's the one that has really the story arc, and you just have, and you're just learning about this character through Deckard's mission to one by one cut way through all these replicants to get towards him. So, and I think that's what about it is that, you see, because the thing with Blade Runner is like, it's one of those films where, which is why I prefer it so much to 2049, is that it's not a regular kind of film. It isn't the regular kind of ABC beginning, middle, and narrative. Like it's an experience. So that's why people that don't like it, there's no way I can teach you how, because basically it either hits you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it works on an emotional level. Like it's hard for me to explain in like basically, for instance, like I can explain why Godfather is such a great film or Shawshank Redemption is such a great film because I can talk about the characters, how the characters are written, the pacing of the film, how it goes from scene to scene, how they have the different resolutions and different twists within the film. So I can, but with Blade Runner, it's hard because it just works for you on an emotional level.
Yeah.
You know, like if you try and critique it based on like, well, this character, then it doesn't work because really for me, like it's about the world that he built. That's really the main thing. Like the other stuff as like, you know, Barty's character, the replicants, Deckard, but really it's about, my gosh, this looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
And this guy created the most unique, craziest world that I think I've probably ever seen in any film. So, and that's why with 2049, I just felt that it just felt like just another film. Like very, very well made. Like Denis Villeneuve, he's a very, very good filmmaker. So it was very well made, very good. But it's like, as you said, after I watched it, I forgot about the film. Like I was like, I don't need to see it again. I admired what I saw. There were some pretty good segments in it and everything, but it didn't leave me with anything. It didn't make a massive impression on me.
Yeah.
That was lasting. So
yeah, there are so many like, and the thing is, I kind of, that's the weird thing is like I kind of agree with everything you just said, like at all your last points, and because like there's so many images from Blade Runner and like just feelings and sounds that stick in my head, like just the opening with all the, you know, with the flames coming out from the city and things of this like big sort of what do you call it, like weird Zeppelin thing like hovering in the sky and like him approaching the Tyrell Corporation and like it just there's something.
But see, that was my issue because I remember seeing like a scene from 2049 that was in the snow, and then I thought to myself that, oh man, maybe what he's gonna do is, you know how in Blade Runner it was all nighttime and rain.
Yeah.
Maybe what Villeneuve going to do is that this is also going to be like cloudy and snow, so it's going to be snowing all the time. So he's really going to like really play around and really just get very creative with snow. But it's like there was only one scene that had it, which looked bloody amazing. But then it just went back to just regular sci-fi interiors and exteriors. I was like, oh well.
The thing, it's such a strange film to kind of try to break apart because there's almost nothing wrong with it. In a lot of ways, with 2049, it's so beautiful. Like there's so many beautiful shots and beautiful moments, and it's just and don't get me wrong, there's moments in it that like I genuinely love, and I think that are great. Like particularly, I feel the stuff that there are a few things that happen between him and Joy, who's his sort of holographic girlfriend, that are really not only like beautifully filmed and quite like genius in some ways. It's like they're also just very moving. Like when there's that sort of like holographic threesome where the hologram girl, where Joy sort of blends with a real like replicant escort. So that he can actually like, you know, be with her physically. And then just like the moment when she dies as well, and then he's just wandering on his own and sees like a big hologram of the same product. And just like all the feelings that and all the ideas that brings up, and just how like alone and just like how alone and sad he is. There aren't those moments in the first Blade Runner. It just doesn't have that kind of quality of writing and of depth. But it's still not as memorable as Blade Runner for some reason. Like I feel like because it's so pristine and so clean and so just like there's no mystery whatsoever. I mean, there's mystery in terms of like the plot that unravels, but it's all so tied up so neatly, and it's all so clear that it doesn't have that sort of messy ambiguity that the first Blade Runner has, where it just the world just feels more confusing and more oppressive, and it just has this just like dark like weirdness to it. And it's just Blade Runner. I feel 2049 is just almost too pristine. It's too.
No, I think that's why it is interesting, which is why it is very hard to get two people that love both films equally the same, because the way in which they're executed is almost completely different.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Ridley Scott was just trying to. Ridley Scott and Hampton Finch, like I think and David Peoples, I think they just wanted to tell much more of a emotional kind of story, which Hampton really relies much on narrative. Whereas I think Villeneuve
wrote 2049 as well, though.
Oh yeah, true. Okay, no, but then again, remember the director can then, because I know that there was a scene with oh gosh, I forgot what his name is. The guy that interviews the replicants at the beginning of Blade Runner.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's a scene with him in a hospital bed that wasn't in the final film. So obviously, Ridley Scott obviously would have looked at the script and said, "Okay, no, I don't want that. I want to just strip it
of course
down and everything." So, I think for Villeneuve, obviously, he wanted to tell something with much more of a narrative. And like, see, the thing for me with 24 is like, I think like the first 50 minutes, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, okay, we're not actually getting much more of a story, So we now know that he's obviously from the start of the back, we know that he's a replicant, and there's obviously like prejudice against replicant people and everything. So I was like, okay, wow, we're in there. But it's like, because put it this way, if this just came out straight off the bat and had nothing to do with Blade Runner, I think I'd have really liked the film. I'd have still had a few issues, but I think I'd have really liked it. I was like, oh man, this is a bloody amazing film with interesting ideas that looks amazing and everything. But because this is tied into Blade Runner, it's a sequel to Blade Runner. You have to keep thinking on Blade Runner. So, and I think, like, for me, the biggest thing of Blade Runner is the world. That is the biggest thing. Is the world. It's the character of the world. Like, if you don't get that right, it isn't Blade Runner. Like, if you ask anybody who's a big fan of Blade Runner and everything, if you ask them what is the biggest thing that you like, if you just pick one, the biggest thing you like about it, they say that it's the world.
Yeah.
The world, that's just the biggest thing that you like about it. So if you don't get the world right, and I think because I was reading that basically Ridley Scott, because he did like thousands of commercials. Like obviously before he had so many commercials, and he said that basically all the commercials he did, he pretty much all that experience that he had from the commercials, he basically put it into the film. So you just had like Egyptian stuff mixed with Middle Eastern stuff, mixed with African stuff, all in the same city. So you'd have like a bit of Far Eastern stuff, African stuff, North African stuff, all. So it was just all jumbled up together. So it's like, oh, this feels like a world.
Yeah, but so that's in 2049, just in a different kind of way.
But it was too clean. You see, and like everything was just very clean. It just felt like it's cool, but it just feels like a very like basically I didn't feel it had a character. There was no real personality or distinctive character to the world. So I mean it's like, I just think that like, look, I mean, it's because going to the whole Sean Young and Harrison Ford thing, but she's a replicant.
Yeah.
So the way I viewed is that because she's a replicant, their relationship is going to be weird already.
Sure, but
because she's not human, and you can tell that she's obviously having troubles, and she's got a chip on her shoulder because she knows that she's been outed as a replicant after thinking she's been human all this time, and all our memories were all lies.
Yeah, but you can see that on the script and like the way it's supposed to be is that they're sort of like, just really just passionately drawn to each other, but you don't.
Wait, what can a replicant really be? show that kind of passion.
Well, yeah, look at
Because if you look at Daryl Hannah and the Snake Lady and everything, there's something very robotic about them.
Sure, but like Harrison Ford himself is also very robotic, and like in fact everyone in the film is very robotic, and it's just like they just have no chemistry. Like whether she's a replicant or not, like it's just clear that they're not drawn to each other. Really, it just doesn't. It just feels very weird, but in a strange way that it kind of adds to the weird vibe of the whole film.
And I mean,
gives it that sort of like creepy. Yeah. But that's the thing with Blade Runner. Which version are we even talking about? Because all the versions are actually quite different and like give very.
No. For me, like I've never seen the original version with the voice.
The theatrical version is very different because it's got Harrison Ford very like unhappily, because he from what I understand about like the behind the scenes, he really didn't want to do the voiceovers.
Oh yeah, no, he didn't.
So he really like he does it really badly, supposedly in the hopes that they just wouldn't use it, but they do, and it's terrible.
Oh, it's like like that scene with them, tears in the rain.
Yeah, and then like, I don't know why.
Speech, I was like, wow, an hour. Like I was like, oh, like it's just so like
it completely ruins the whole scene. Like after he's like, I don't know why he didn't kill me. Perhaps in that moment,
oh my god,
he found that life was he didn't want to like he wanted to save a life, any life.
But we see that goes to my point, and even to a criticism that you make. I feel that when the producers saw the cut of the film, they were like, I think they got fearful. They were like, a lot of people are going to be like you, as in they're going to be like, there's no story here. There's no people not having any idea what the hell is happening. So we need a voiceover to narrate and just tell people exactly what is happening, because you're not giving us enough story and content in this film. Whereas Ridley Scott, and I think even Harrison Ford, he didn't want to do the voiceover. Like, no. We're not here to spoon feed the audience. This is an experience. Let the audience do the work there themselves and just take away whatever they feel about let them just take it away for their own. We can't just be giving them everything. And hence why when you now watch like the Ultimate Cut that doesn't have any of the voiceover, that is exactly what Ridley Scott wanted to give to people, which is that this film is different. It's not a regular kind of film. But I just think like the producers obviously were like, okay, I don't think people would really get it or understand the film.
Yeah.
So,
well, it did do very, very badly.
Oh no, it was a flop.
2049 also didn't do great.
No, I think, which is why it's
just I can't imagine 2049 ever becoming a cult classic the way it does, because it just but
look, man, I'll be real with you. On Reddit, man, people love this.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, because it's so good, it's in terms of like how well it's made.
Yeah,
it almost feels like you have to like it, and that's what I was like getting at before. But it's like, again, for a different reason than people who's like, where it's a different reason to the idea of the original Blade Runner, and people who feel like you sort of have to like that because it's just become this cult classic that everyone just sort of, if you're a cinephile, you just like automatically. Whereas, 2049 is like, it's kind of like that, but because it's just so well made and people get, I guess, defensive about it because it didn't do so well at the box office. People are like, you sort of cling to it a bit more. Like thinking like, oh, film should have done so much better, and it just didn't get the praise it deserves. But also like people perhaps feeling a bit superior, like, yes, this is a film I get that, like, the masses just don't appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, basically for me, I think like there is a way where a Blade Runner film can actually be a hit. But then that's where you really have to really, which is where we see, it's where I thought 2049 was gonna go, but then knowing who Denis Villeneuve is, I knew it would never go there. For instance, like, remember there's a section where I think in the last third, where like, you know, things start hitting up and like the music kicks in and everything, and I think Ryan Gosling's character basically is basically going onto his spaceship to pretty much, I think, go and find Harrison Ford or something. I think basically guys are coming for him and he's trying to escape. I thought, oh man, this is when you're really going to see this thing just kicking so crazy action and everything. But it's never really went there.
Yeah, but
I remember in the cinema, I think you said that, man. If you gave James Cameron this section, he would just go to town in just the action of like the chase. We're trying to chase him, hand-to-hand combat, gunplay, blah, 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 blah. But like Villeneuve isn't that kind of the director. So
no. And yeah.
No. But see, like, it's a Blade Runner film can be a box office. It's if you really go to town with these, because look, they're bounty hunters.
But I feel like then it would be such a different film.
Oh no. See, so that's the way Blade Runner is and Ridley Scott's made. It's a difficult one because in order to make that world, you do need the money. So you're always going to lose money on it, or you're not going to make that much money because it's to make the film well, you need the money, but you're not going to make huge money because the way the film is just doesn't appeal to the masses. You know, like most of the masses will just find it boring. Hence why most people find. See, that's the thing that the bullshit. Most people find Blade Runner and 2049 boring because they're like, "What's all this stuff? Why is it so slow? Why is it dragging? What's happening? Where's the action?"
But that's that's the sad thing that I have to confess is that when I watched Blade Runner 2049 the second time, I found it boring. I found it like not throughout the whole thing.
Oh, you found it boring.
Yes. Like there's in the sort of like, I guess it kind of feels like there's 4 acts, but there's a section where Ryan Gosling goes to look for Harrison Ford. And that whole section is just really long and really drawn out. And I just found myself really bored and like trying to force myself not to be bored. I was like, no, you like this film. This is a great film. You should not be bored right now. But I just was. I was just like, the mystery is not interesting enough. And Ryan Gosling is not. I get that he's a replicant and his casting works and his acting style does work for the character, but he's just not interesting enough. He's not charismatic and likable enough to carry this like slow film.
I mean, basically for me, I've like see one of my biggest issues with the film with 2049 is Harrison Ford. You see, I felt that you got Deckard in Blade Runner, but I felt like we got Harrison Ford in 2049.
I don't know. I think he acts a lot better.
It just felt like this is just good old grumpy Harrison Ford.
But like whoever the hell Deckard was,
he acted well. But basically, I remember there was that scene, you know, when they have the fights in the car.
Yeah.
As the car's like submerging in the water. And you just see Harrison Ford just sort of like grimacing in the corner. And I was like, that's just Harrison Ford grimacing.
Yeah, just like waiting for his sandwich.
Yeah.
From the prop tray. I mean, yeah. Because the thing is, it's another weird thing that like kind of ties into the weird contradiction between the two films in that he does kind of act better and with like more emotion in 2049, but it's just less interesting. But than in Blade Runner. But he's so miscast in Blade Runner because he's just not like, I don't want to say like he can only play these sort of charismatic, cocky guys like Han Solo and Indiana Jones, which Deckard is the exact opposite of because he's just a miserable, broody, cynical shithead. But I just feel like you're sort of getting real world Harrison Ford there as well, in that he just was not getting on with anyone behind the scenes and was just kind of just in a bad mood the whole time.
But see, what I always thought was, I felt that Kurt Russell would have been a better casting in the role.
I feel like you say that with a lot of roles.
Oh no, no.
You know who would have been great in this role? Kurt Russell.
No, but why? Which of the roles have I said that?
I can't remember, but it's just coming to me like that.
Oh no, trust. I think this is the only one in which I said Russell would have been
okay
better. Again, if I look, who knows? But I see Harrison Ford for me. His most perfect casting was Indiana Jones. You know, obviously I can see many other guys doing Han Solo. I think he didn't this is it. I think Indiana Jones, he was born to play that. I don't think anybody could quite play it like him. But because again, I just think that maybe it's I don't know whether it's Harrison Ford or maybe it was the issues he was having behind the scenes that you felt that he didn't really I felt like if for as far as a detective could go in a film noir, he could have given the guy much more of a personality in the film, you know. And maybe if he had much more of a personality, maybe he would have had a different kind of chemistry with Sean Young and so forth and everything. But I think it doesn't make sense that was Villeneuve the right man to do a Blade Runner sequel?
Yeah, see, I don't know that he was now.
Because from the offset, you're you need a strong visualist, which he is.
Yeah.
A guy who is very artistic and cares about emotional detail, which he is. Just that. But then, because I then think to myself, because again, when he was announced, when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my, Villeneuve, this is the right guy. But then after watching it, then looking back at what's that alien film?
What,
Arrival. See, when you look at Arrival, it's Arrival is very similar to 2449.
Yeah.
And have you seen Sicario?
I haven't actually seen it, no.
You see, so when you watch Sicario, you watch Prisoners, you watch Arrival, there's a very pristine cleanness to the stuff where it's very clean, very, there's a cleanness to it, and there is nothing gritty or edgy about those films visually, you know. And even Prisoners are supposed to be a very edgy story. There's still a pristineness to the film. And one of the things about Blade Runner is that world is very edgy. It's literally walking down Soho or Red Light District. It's very
see, even the dirtiness in 2049 feels clean.
Yeah, it still feels clean.
It's because it's so it's so just it's so refined and so just well executed that it just doesn't. It just needs that sort of it needs someone with a sort of brash improvisational.
Do you know who would have been perfect? I just thought of it now. Darren Aronofsky. I think he would have been. I think he has the crazy creativeness and would understand the edgy dirtiness to it as well. I think Villeneuve has the visuals to a T easily. And but I don't think he has that kind of thug in him.
I think I agree with you actually on this. And there's so many things I do want to just keep saying about 2049 that are amazing. The way the technology is so you can see there's so much thought put into it.
No. Do you know that scene when they go to that place that's very yellowy?
Yeah,
a library or something.
Yeah.
I remember sitting saying that, who the heck shot this? Because I said, if this dude doesn't win a 3 Oscars for this, because I've never seen anything look as beautiful as that.
It's such a stunning film, and it's but there's just the way the technology feels so believable. It's how it's got this mix of old and new. Sometimes it's all clunky and a bit 80s, and it all just feels run down, but still very high tech and fantastical. All that stuff is just brilliant. It just feels so. It just doesn't. Something just doesn't allow it to be that memorable.
No. For me, I think what it is if you just look at 2049 in isolation, I think what it is you see, in Arrival, that was 100% his film. So again, for me, like Arrival didn't work for me as much as it works for a lot of people. But I can still say that Arrival, I can see why Arrival can work really well for people because that was completely his thing.
Yeah, I loved it.
I think in 2014 he was caught in two minds of making my own film and pleasing Ridley Scott.
Yeah,
because he was such a fan of Blade Runner, he wanted just to, and he knew how many fans were over this world and how many people were waiting for a sequel to this. He wanted to obviously please one of his heroes, Ridley Scott. He wants to also want to honor one of the most influential films for him, which is Blade Runner, but also make his own film. So what you have is a film that is very Villeneuve, but also trying to live up to and almost mimic a Blade Runner.
Yeah, which he just doesn't have the sort of what's the word?
He's just not the right because like see, I was about to say skill set.
No, yeah, that's not it.
I think that would be like
it's
the
sort of just approach his way of just seeing things is different,
which you can't tell because it's just a mentality.
Yeah,
it's like Spielberg as good as Spielberg is, he'll never have the kind of edge that James Cameron has.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's one thing I wanted to mention about 2049 as well, like in that like so much of the story and like all the plot revolves around this idea of like this like a baby being born to a replicant and what that will mean to all the replicants of the Blade Runner world and like what it will mean for the future of sort of humanity and stuff. And that's sort of the driving impetus behind the whole story. But the problem is you never see the replicants really. Like
don't you see them? So who are those people that he sort of
yeah, there's that sort of resistance group.
Yeah.
But they're very minor, and you never really see how much replicants are suffering. You never get the sense of like what daily life is like. You get it a bit through Ryan Gosling and like how he's treated, but very minor. And so what that means is this whole central driving force of the plot just doesn't really mean anything because you don't care. You don't see what you don't see the real struggles of the replicants and like how this will impact their lives, and like it's just like a vague idea that sounds heavy and sounds meaningful, but really it doesn't impact you when you're watching the film because there's nothing to tie it to with the world. The world feels actually quite small, and that's the sad thing about it because of just like how high quality everything that you do see is. You just don't get the sense of like the world, the what's at stake, other than just what you're told. Like you're told by Kevin Spacey's wife from House of Cards.
Robin Wright's pen.
Robin Wright pen, yeah.
Right, yeah.
You're told by her, look, this is going to destroy. Yeah, this will end the world if this gets out. Like this is like going to shake everything up. But like that's it. You just hear that that's what's going to happen, but you never feel it. And so because the guy you're with for 80% of the film, Ryan Gosling, just isn't that interesting, and the fact that what he's going after doesn't really feel that impactful, it just makes the film quite boring. And because everything is so pristine and clean and like so nicely wrapped up, it just makes it all feel just a bit.
Okay, so because you know what you're saying, and the things you're saying are similar issues I had with Arrival. So what do you think that Arrival did well that this didn't do well? Or what do you think separates Arrival from this?
That's a good question because I hadn't really thought of that. But I feel like with what's at stake with Arrival, you don't need as much kind of context setting because it's set in the modern day. So with all the sort of like threat that's suggested and implied with Arrival, you can feel because it would affect us like in the modern day. It's not set in a far away world with things like replicants that we don't have. So in that respect, the threat feels more tangible, but also what's going on in terms of like the ideas that it explores are also more a bit like the ideas that are explored in Blade Runner are just kind of the very normal sci-fi artificial person ideas, which is like what is life, like what is the value of life, and like where do you draw the line between something that's alive and something that isn't, and like what is a soul, like what has a soul and what is truly alive and things like that. That's just like almost every other sci-fi deals with that sort of idea, whereas the ideas that are dealt with in Arrival are a lot more, I found, a lot more interesting and a lot more unique. And I just feel Arrival, its whole tone, and like you were saying, because it is very much Villeneuve's thing and you don't have to compare it to anything else, it just kind of works as its own self-contained story. And while yes, it is like it does I see what you're saying, in that it also has that issue of it being so pristine that there isn't that sort of like edge. I don't know any other word for it.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not.
Like, it doesn't have that edge.
I just think like he has a particular kind of
but that is Villeneuve's style.
Yeah, I mean, like it's aesthetic and it's
like how do you can't put that forth as an argument.
No.
There's no other way to say it. Like it is just missing that edge.
Yeah,
whatever that edge is.
Oh no, but I think like, but see, in Arrival, my issue wasn't about him having an edge. It's just that, like I just, again, for me, I thought, I just thought it was a decent film. Decent film. I like the way that they showed how the aliens communicated. I thought that was really original. It just that I was shocked that it was so loved by so many people. When I came out, I thought, oh yeah, pretty good film. I didn't think it was amazing, but yeah, it was all right, pretty good. So there was no issue about the aesthetics, but I just think that you see, when something like Blade Runner has such an impact like that, you see, the only person that can do a sequel is Ridley Scott. But the sick thing is this: I wouldn't want Ridley Scott to do a sequel.
No way.
Because the Ridley Scott in the 80s was hungry. He was desperate. He was still trying to prove himself. And
now he's Sir Ridley Scott.
So I think now he's Sir Ridley Scott. He's obsessed with CGI. He doesn't need to prove himself, and he doesn't have the same kind of care and desperation that he had back in the 80s.
Excuse me.
Right. So, but I think for me, I just feel like, again, just even when I was just watching bits of Blade Runner on now, I'm like, it's just bloody amazing. And the thing about it is that, again, I do love. See, that's my like. I appreciate really intricate films that have twists, and I'm like, man, how did you do that twist? How did you do that thing with the story and everything? But whenever like I'm writing a story, if let's say I'm making a film, I'm writing a story, and it was just all down to me, I try and make the story as basic as possible. Like if I'm writing a story, I don't really look at trying to make the story too tricky or be intricate or be very twisty. I try and make the story as very simple as possible. My main thing is about just the emotions that you get through with the characters and the emotions of the story and just the aura and the atmosphere. Which is what makes Blade Runner so good, is that even with Deckard and Harrison Ford, even without him saying much, I already know what he's about. Because I've already done the work. So, and I hate being spoon-fed. So as soon as you see him, because I look at his coats, the color on his coat, what he looks like, how he relates to his chief. I look at Gaff, who only has like 5 lines, but I already know what he's about. I know what Deckard is about. I know what the world is about. So without these guys telling me so much and me learning about their histories, seeing their memories, just because of the way it's directed, how it's shot, how they present it, I already know what those characters are about. I know what kind of detective he is. And I already know, I've already done the work of like how I think his detective career went and why he's on the periphery already. Without you telling me, I've just done the work myself based on, okay, let me use my imagination now to really fill in all the blanks now. And And that's just what you're constantly doing with these characters that are just presented to you in this very visual way, and you just fill in the blanks yourself through your imagination. And that's just the brilliance of the film. And I think every single time I watch it and I finish it, man, it's like, no, this is the journey of a replicants questioning themselves. That's what the story is about. Like, I'm not hung up about again, I was even talking to someone else who said that, yeah, like, look, this film has no real narrative, no real story, blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, like 100%, you're right. It doesn't have a narrative or a story, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, because it's almost like a cheat code. Because it's so visually insane, you forget about about it having a narrative, because the visuals give you the narrative, and you're already filling in the stuff through your own imagination and creativity based on the visuals and the world that Ridley Scott has given you. Which is why it's like, it is like, it does lend itself to having much more of a world and more films, but it's just not going to be financially viable, because it's such an amazing. Because I even remember when 2049 started, and how he did it with the whole writing against the black background. I was thinking that, man, this is such a crazy world. Yeah. That's really Scott. Like, it actually has its own kind of thing. So even when you just see, like, now, every time I see the writing with the black background, I just think of Blade Runner now. So that's almost like Blade Runner's thing. But like the idea of, like, Blade Runners, these replicants, these bounty hunters, what the world is about, it can be such an interesting world. It's just that it's you're not going to make money off it.
Yeah.
Unless you make an action movie which isn't Blade Runner.
Well, yeah, that's just like, I don't know, Total Recall or something.
No. I mean, but it's like, but have you ever seen the behind the scenes of Blade Runner, the original one?
Yes, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe a long time ago.
No, I think because when you just see what this dude went through to make this, because I think I think it was either on this or Alien. I think it must have been on this, where Ridley Scott, I think there were two crews, like an English crew that Ridley Scott always used, and the English crew that he brought on from Alien, and there was an American crew. And Ridley Scott didn't like the American crew because he didn't trust them. He preferred the English crew, and the American crew were actually sort of resentful.
Right, yeah.
And there's a bit of friction between the people. They say, well, look, man, we're just as good as your English boys and everything. Why can't we do everything? So, but just when you just look at, which is why a Blade Runner film could never be made now.
Yeah. I mean, everything I've heard about the making of Blade Runner is just that it was a massive ordeal.
Yeah. But through the pain and hard work is what you get there, because now if Ridley Scott was going to do Blade Runner, he'll just make everything CGI and it would look crap. Yeah. And the thing about what makes that world so crazy is that you can feel it. Everything is real. Like, that restaurant is real. Those stalls are real. Those umbrellas are real. Those hoardings with the Japanese writing, that's all real. That's all that stuff is all built.
It's so just like, yeah, you can't watch it without like this sense of just awe.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's insane, because like I can only imagine what it would have felt like watching it back then, because even watching it now, I've never seen anything like this. And that's what people don't get, is that CGI can never give you the sensation of real sets. So you can use all the CGI in the world, your avatar, this and that and everything. The sensation that you get of, like, because again, that's just our human mind. We know when something is real, we know when something is fake. And when something is real, it just has a much greater profound effect on you than something that is CGI or computer generated. But so like, I mean, 2049, I mean, so where do you now stand on the film? Because I remember you really loved it.
Yeah. I'd say like my feelings of it towards it have lessened somewhat, but not in the sense that I feel like it's any worse of a film. I just found myself enjoying it less than I remembered. And I think because so much of the story is like what kind of keeps you going through the story is like you're always like questioning what's going to happen. You're like, ooh, is he is he going to find out that he was like the son of Harrison Ford, and then you find out that he isn't, and like all that stuff. But once you know all that, like sitting through it the second time just makes it quite dull, because as amazing and just gorgeous and stunning as the film is, that stuff just wears off because it's such a long film. It kind of wears off, but it's like it's quality from beginning to end, but it's just as just amazing a film as it is in terms of that quality. It's not. I don't feel it will like be as remembered as the original Blade Runner, which is just this messy sort of strange gem that just sticks with you.
Oh, okay. So you feel that Blade Runner sticks with you more than 2049, even though you feel 2049 is
that was my main point. That like, even though I think Blade Runner 2049 is a far superior film in terms of just like how well it's made. But like, I think Blade Runner is far more unique and far more just memorable, and it has this intangible magic to it that just makes it sort of stay with you. And, it's the reason why it's like lasted so long and been considered such a classic. Because there's a magic to it that isn't really there in 2049. Because 2049 is just almost too perfect. It's like just too pristine. Yeah, like we've said.
I mean, I would say, in my view, I would still hold that 2049 is still a good film. It is a good film. Bloody amazing to look at, visually amazing. But I would still say that Blade Runner is still a superior film to 2049. And why I'd say that is, for me, Blade Runner, for what it is, it works. Everything works. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, beyond just the visuals, it's a very simple story that works. And every single time that I go through the journey of the story just keeps on walking. Because when you just see the story arc of the replicants and the story arc of Batty and what he does at the very end, and even Deckard's journey towards at the very end, and how he's presented, how Batty is presented, and how they're both presented, you think that they're almost at opposite ends, and you then find out that no, they're not really that dissimilar from who they are. Just that very, very simple story just works all the time. And I think sometimes some of the best films, the best stories are the simplest ones. It's not complicated. There's no twists and turns here. It's just a very simple story about a machine robot that doesn't want to die and wants to extend its life, and actually become sort of aware of the beauty of its life. So. And that's just what the story is. It's just about, a machine becoming self-aware and having emotions and realizing the finite nature of existence, which is what it is. So, whereas in 2049, I don't know how to wrap up what the story is. I can't give you the story is about this. This is what the ABC of the whole thing is, because it's about, the replicants are coming, Harrison Ford is there, and he's his son, he's not his son, and then his daughter is there, and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, so
yeah,
because again, there's some really good bits there and everything, but again, it's like it's hard to revisit, because what makes you revisit a film many times is that kind of story that can be encapsulated very easily, because you want to go on that journey again and again. The reason why I've watched Batman more than any other film is it's such a very interesting story of this Bruce Wayne Batman character and how he ends up and his conversation with the Joker. It's just a very simple story that I can just enjoy the journey hundreds of times. And I think with Blade Runner, again, it's just a very simple story, simple journey, very interesting morals, strong message. a very powerful, strong message about being aware of existence and how short and how precious life is. Again, what's it called? Like the quotes that Tyrell says about you're a fire that's burns so brightly, but obviously like when you burn bright, it's very short, but in that short space that you burn very brightly and very powerfully and everything, but holding on to that existence. So yeah, so it's a powerful message. Whereas I didn't feel that power of a message in 2449, and I think it's a shame because I just don't think we're going to be seeing any more Blade Runner films.
Well, I think what we've got is pretty good.
Oh yeah, true. No. What we have is
any more Blade Runner films, really.
It's persuasion. So, any final words, final thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we've said what needs to be said. I mean, obviously, we could talk about these films for ages because get into the different characters, get into the whole like, is Deckard
oh yeah, actually no. Let me say it. In your view, is Deckard a replicant?
No, but I don't think it matters either way.
Wait. Why don't you think he's a replicant?
Well, I think Well, I don't think there's any way to say like whether he is or not. I think Ridley Scott definitely thinks he is.
No. But see, my thing is that it's very easy. Like in Blade Runner, he dreams of a unicorn.
Right, but Ridley Scott put that stuff in against the writer's wishes. Against Hampton. What's his name?
Fincher or Fancher.
Fancher, yeah. That was his name. Yeah, Hampton Fancher. Yeah, it's like, and in the original "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" That's not a thing. It's entirely Ridley Scott's thing. Harrison Ford thought it was dumb. Just Ridley Scott, when he got control of the director's cut, he was like, "I've decided that Deckard is a replicant." So I'm going to.
Okay, so the unicorn dream wasn't in the original cut.
No.
Oh.
And so Ridley Scott thinks he's a replicant, and so that he's meant to very strongly imply that he is. But I think that doesn't add anything to the story, and I think that it doesn't really make any sense with him being a replicant.
Oh no! I like the mystery.
Sure, the mystery just adds.
Do you not know? So
yeah, sure. But then, which goes into the question of just like, does it matter? And like, what is, like, how can you tell what is human and what isn't? And you draw the line, etc. So that whole idea is interesting. But I think that like him being a replicant is just kind of silly. But it like, again, with it works with the tone of what Blade Runner, the first one, is, where it is just kind of messy and unclear and vague a lot of the time. So it doesn't really matter.
But actually, I didn't. I thought that unicorn dream was always there.
No, it's not in the theatrical cut.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think I like it better where. That's why I didn't even watch that Ridley Scott, because when I saw the headline of Ridley Scott says, I said, forget it. Like, I didn't even want to like read it or anything. I said, no, just leave it as a mystery. Like, why come out and say, yes, he is definitely a replicant? No, just leave it as a mystery. So that's cool. Well, some people think he's a replicant, something he's not. Like, for me, I think he is, but there's a strong argument for him not being. I think that's actually great. But the worst thing is, he is definitely a replicant now. Then that just makes it not cool. Well, guys, this has been a very interesting session on Woomba. So look, man, in the comments below, please give us suggestions for what other film you want us to do next, and we shall give you that. So, guys, it's been swell. Thank you, Mr. Basil, the Great Master Detective, and I shall see you next week, brah.
All right.
Peace.